everyone. Welcome to The Hindu Current Affairs for Beginners by Law Excellence IAS. Before starting on today's session, first let us see answers for the questions from our yesterday's video. The first question is, consider the following statements. National Pharmaceutical Pricing Authority will fix the price of drugs, whereas the Central Drug Standard Control Organization will fix prices for specified critical drugs like blood, IV fluids. This statement is incorrect because here this is okay. The National Pharmaceutical Pricing Authority will fix the price of drugs, whereas this is the Standard Control Organization. It will only grant licenses to these specified critical drugs like blood, IV fluids, sera, all these, but it will not fix those prices. Next, the National Pharmaceutical Pricing Authority functions under the Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers, whereas Central Drug Standard Control Organization works under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. This statement is correct. So as only 2 is correct, the answer here is B, 2 only. The next question is, with regard to Securities Exchange Board of India, consider the following statements. It is an independent money market regulator of India. This statement is incorrect because it is the capital market regulator, but it is not the money market regulator. The next statement is, it has direct powers to grant immunity to the violators of securities laws. This statement is incorrect because in our yesterday's video we have seen that SEBI is seeking for these direct powers to grant immunity to the violators of securities laws. But till now it is being done by the central government only. The powers are with the central government only. So as both the statements were incorrect, the answer here is D, none of the above. Now let's start our today's session, and these are all the topics that we are going to cover in our today's video. Our first article is, Supreme Court may send plea challenging quota bill to the Constitution bench. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of governance, and the subtopic here is government policies and interventions for the development in various sectors. On Monday, the Supreme Court has said that it is not in favor of passing an order at this stage to refer the issue of 10% quota for economically weaker sections across all the classes to a constitution bench. But the court has agreed to examine the validity of this law, and it has issued a notice to the centre based on a petition filed by a businessman and Congress supporter Tehsin Poonawalla. This person has filed a petition seeking to quash this amendment bill, 103rd Constitutional Amendment Bill, saying that backwardness for the purpose of reservation cannot be defined by this economic status alone. So now let us see what is this 103rd Constitutional Amendment Act. What is this 103rd Constitutional Amendment Act? This act provides 10% reservation in jobs and educational institutions to the economically weaker sections in general category. And this legislation is also known as this Constitutional 103rd Amendment Act of 2019. This 10% reservation will be in addition to the existing cap of 50% reservation for scheduled castes, tribes and OBCs, that is the other backward classes. Now the total reservation cap will be going to 60%. And what are the new changes that were brought by this Amendment Act? First thing is, this act has amended 2 fundamental rights. What are those 2 fundamental rights? It is Article 15 that deals with prohibition of discrimination based on the grounds of race, religion, caste, sex or place of birth. And the other thing is Article 16, which prohibits discrimination in employment in the government office. And this new amendment has made a note of Article 46, which asks the government to promote educational and economic interests of the weaker sections of the society. So to whom and all this reservation will be applicable? That is for the people who will have their annual income less than 8 lakh rupees and This is eligible for people who owns less than 5 acres of farmland and people who have a house lesser than 1000 square feet in a town or 100 square yard, less than 100 square yard in a notified municipal area. And for the people who are having a residential plot below 200 yards in non-notified municipality area. So, what is this Indira Sahani case that is being mentioned in this article? The 9-judge Constitution Bench of Supreme Court in the Indira Sahani case of 1992, they have answered a question whether the backward classes can be identified only and exclusively, whether they can be identified only and exclusively with regard to economic criteria. Then the Constitution Bench has ruled that a backward class cannot be determined only and exclusively based on this economic criteria. And the bench has said that economic criteria can be taken as a consideration along with social backwardness, but it should not be considered as a sole criteria for providing reservation. And the bench in its judgment has declared that 50% quota should not be exceeded except in some extraordinary situations. This 50% quota should not be exceeded and this rule should be applied every year. The next article is Scientists Rediscover Wood Snake Last Seen in 1878. This article comes under GS paper 3 under the topic of wildlife and the subtopic here is conservation. Here a species of wood snake which wasn't seen for 140 years was resurfaced in a survey conducted by the scientists in Meghamalai Wildlife Sanctuary, and the species is endemic to these Meghamalai Wildlife Sanctuary and Periyar Tiger Reserve. So just know where these two belongs to. What is the location of this Meghamalai and Periyar Tiger Reserve? It is Tamil Nadu. As we keep saying that whenever a national park or any tiger reserve appears in paper, just note it down where is its location or if there are any species that is endemic to that particular forest or reserve. The next article is Sirsi Supari gets GI tag. This article comes under GS paper 3 under the topic of economy and the subtopic here is issues related to intellectual property rights. So this article is all about here for the first time in the arecanut sector, Sirsi Supari, which is grown in Uttara Kannada, has received this geographic indication tag. So now, from the prelims point of view, we should know what is this product which has got this geographical indication tag and we should know about this geographical indication. This geographical indication is a sign which is used on the products that have a specific geographical indication origin and it possesses qualities or a reputation that the product has gained due to its origin. So, in order to become a geographical indication, a sign must identify a product as originating in a given place. And this GI geographical indication is primarily an agricultural, natural or a manufactured product. That means it could be a handicraft or an industrial good originating from a specific geographical territory. It should be originated from a specific geographical territory. This name will indicate or it will provide an assurance of the quality. This geographical indication, it provides assurance about the quality of the product and its uniqueness, which can be attributed to the place of this product's origin. And once this geographical indication protection is granted, no other producer can misuse the name to market similar products. And this is a benefit which is being provided by this geographical indication. Its name cannot be misused in order to market similar products. And it will also provide comfort to the customers about the authenticity, about the quality of the product. And this GI is covered as an element of intellectual property rights under the Paris Convention for the protection of industrial property. And at the international level, this geographical indication is governed by World Trade Organization's Agreement on Trade Related Aspects of Intellectual Property Rights. This is known as TRIPS. At the international level, this geographical indication is governed by this World Trade Organization's Agreement on Trade Related Aspects of Intellectual Property Rights. And in India, these geographical indications of goods, Registration and Protection Act of 1999 will govern it. And where is this office? The Registrar of Geographical Indications that functions under the Union Government is in Chennai. Here, this geographical indication certificate will be issued. The next article is a compromise is still possible. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of Judiciary. And this entire article is about this Ayodhya issue, and recently the Supreme Court has formulated a 3-member panel to mediate in this Ayodhya dispute. That means the entire article is dealing about this concept known as alternate dispute resolution mechanism. We have seen that this alternate dispute resolution is a settlement out of court. It is an out of court settlement which is different from traditional mechanism of going to the court and getting our disputes resolved. This mechanism was proposed by Malamuth Committee, which is also known as Arrears Committee, when they undertook a comprehensive review of how the court system is working, and when they saw there were some arrears and delay in the justice, then they have said that there is a need of this alternate dispute resolution, and this resolution will consist of many techniques to resolve the disputes with third party intervention. Followed by these recommendations, our India has established this alternate dispute resolution mechanism with a constitutional basis of Article 14, which deals with equality before law, and Article 21, right to life and personal liberty, and also with the backing of a directive principles of state policy of equal justice and free legal aid as engraved in Article 39A of the Indian Constitution. All these can be achieved with this alternate dispute resolution mechanism. And we have said that this alternate dispute resolution mechanism, it has to be done with different techniques. And those techniques are arbitration, conciliation, mediation, which is being proposed by the Supreme Court to resolve the Ayodhya dispute. And the fourth one is judicial settlements inclusive of Lok Adalats. Now let us see each and everything in detail. The first thing is arbitration. Under this form of alternative dispute resolution mechanism, both the parties who were involved in the dispute, they will choose the third person. They will have a power to choose the third person who will hear and determine their dispute through a consensus. The objective of this mechanism is to arrive at a fair resolution without any bias through an unbiased tribunal in a cost-effective manner, and also to get a speedy justice. Next, the method is conciliation. Under this conciliation, the intention is to facilitate the settlement between the parties. Here, the parties were not obliged they are not bound by conciliation. That means the negotiations can be carried out until the parties arrive at a mutually pleasing settlement. They can keep negotiating until they both agree with one argument. And this process will be handled by an impartial individual who is termed as a conciliator. He is unbiased and is neutral. He is an active participant in the process of conciliation and he is involved in discussing the issues, negotiating and bringing out an amicable settlement. And the next process is mediation. This mediation, here a mediator is involved in assisting the parties in the dispute in order to reach an agreement. Here the parties in the dispute, they will set the conditions of settlement that has to be reached. Here the thing is, the parties will set conditions, not the mediator or anybody else. They will set the conditions based on which a settlement will be reached. Now, the third party will not impose any decisions. The third party, that means the mediator, he cannot impose any decisions on the parties, but only thing he can do is he will act as a facilitator by involving in improving the dialogue between the parties. Next, the thing is Lok Adalats. Establishment of Lok Adalat system of dispute settlement system, this was brought with the Legal Services Authorities Act of 1987 in order to speed up the dispute resolution mechanism. In Lok Adalats, the disputes in the pre-litigation stage could be settled amicably. This Lok Adalat has its roots in People's Court. It is the People's Court. Here, the mechanism will be in this way. They are organized mostly by the state legal aid and advice boards with the help of district legal aid and advice dispute resolution system that is presided over by a sitting or retired judicial officer who will act as a chairman along with two other members, and the two other members will be like a lawyer and a social worker. Here there will be no court fee in case if the fee is paid by filing a case in the regular court, then the fee will be refunded if the dispute is settled at the Lok Adalat. And they work here as a conciliator in order to arrive at a compromise or settlement between the parties of a dispute with regard to any matter that is falling within the jurisdiction of any civil, criminal or revenue courts or of any tribunal that is constituted by any law for the time being, for the area for which the Lok Adalat is being organized. The next article is India is the world's second largest arms importer. This article comes under GS paper 3 under the topic of economy, and the subtopic here is effects of liberalization on the economy. So this article is all about, according to the latest report that is published by Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, India is the world's second largest importer of major arms in 2014 till 2018, and it is accounted that 9.5% of the global total is imported by India, and Saudi Arabia stood at first and by accounting of 12% of the total imports. From where are we importing these arms? Majority of the stake is from Russia. 58% of these imports are from Russia. Indian arm imports in 2014 to 2018 is from Russia, and even from Israel and US. These are the two big suppliers which have provided nearly 15% from Israel and 12% of the supplies from US to India. And the other things that this article is saying is Pakistan stood at 11th position in this article. Here, China is helping Pakistan and Bangladesh in ramping up their military powers. Here, China is the fifth largest exporter of weapons ahead of the traditional manufacturers like UK and Israel. Its biggest benefactors are Pakistan and Bangladesh, both sharing a border with India and could potentially cause trouble for New Delhi. The next article is Foreign Secretary Gokhale in US to discuss terror threat. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of international relations. In the backdrop of this recent Pulwama attack, our Foreign Secretary has been to US to discuss about these terror and trade issues. In this article, here there is mention of India-US 2x2 dialogue. What is this 2x2 dialogue that happened between India and US? In the foreign policy terms, this 2+2 means it is a term which is used for a dialogue mechanism between two countries consisting of their key ministries. The ministries involved in this mechanism is Defense Ministry and the External Affairs Ministry. And this format is drawn based on the framework of Japan, which used its strategic interactions with US, France, Russia and Australia. Even India and Japan had a similar mechanism between them since 2010. And even India and US has also concluded its 2x2 meeting last year. The aim of this dialogue is to increase the coordination between both the countries and to maintain peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific region. And this dialogue has replaced earlier India and US used to have a dialogue known as India-US Strategic and Commercial Dialogue. This format was replaced by this new 2x2 format. The next article is SR Steel ex-directors move NCLAT against Tribunal order. This article comes under GS paper 3 under the topic of economy. In our previous video, we have seen about this insolvency and bankruptcy code mechanism with regard to this SR Steel issue. First, let us see what are the legal mechanisms that were there in our India. Our Indian competition adjudicatory system consists of two mechanisms. One is the Competition Commission of India and the other thing is National Company Law Appellate Tribunal. This Competition Commission of India is a statutory body which is responsible for implementing the provisions of Competition Act of 2002, and its responsibilities are to prevent activities that will have an adverse effect on competition among the companies in the country. What about this NCLAT, National Company Law Appellate Tribunal? This will serve as an appellate tribunal for hearing the appeals against the decisions, directions or orders that were passed by National Company Law Tribunal, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India and Competition Commission of India also. Anybody who are not satisfied with the decisions of these people, then they can appeal to this National Company Law Appellate Tribunal, which will hear the appeals against the decisions of these bodies. Now, this is what happened even in this SR Steel issue, where the National Company Law Tribunal has given this bid of taking over this SR Steel to ArcelorMittal. Now, these SR Steel ex-directors were not satisfied with the decision of National Company Law Tribunal and they have approached to National Company Law Appellate Tribunal. The next article is Plastic in Focus at UN Environment Forum. This article comes under GS paper 3 under the topic of environment and the subtopic here is pollution. What is this article saying? Here thousands of delegates, business leaders and campaigners, they reached Nairobi for 5-day United Nations Environment Assembly, which is the top annual forum on the planet's environmental crisis. Here the countries from around the world have set a deal to curb this plastic waste. which is a source of long-term pollution and which is the source for contaminating the ocean's food chain. Here, the United Nations wants the individual countries to sign up. They wanted the countries to voluntarily sign up to significantly reduce the plastic production, including a phasing out. That is, they want to phase out this single-use plastics by 2030. Single-use plastic means the plastics which were used once and it will be thrown out. They want to phase out these single-use plastics by 2030, and this goal was inspired by the 2015 Paris Agreement on voluntary reductions of carbon emissions. In 2015 Paris Agreement, the countries have adopted to reduce the carbon emissions voluntarily. This mechanism of countries voluntarily contributing to reduce something is brought from this 2015. Now they were inspired by this Paris Agreement and they have brought in, the United Nations were asking the individual countries to sign up to significantly reduce plastic production. The next article is World Health Organization Strategy to Fight Flu Pandemics. This article comes under GS Paper 2 under the topic of governance, and the subtopic is issues related to health. The context of this article is the World Health Organization has launched a strategy to protect people across the world against the threat of influenza. Here, the new strategy for 2013, which it is aiming to prevent this influenza by 2030, is to control the spread of this virus from animals to humans and prepare for the next spread of this disease across the region. And this new strategy, what is this strategy? The first thing is it is asking every country to strengthen their routine health programs and to develop a tailor-made influenza programs. It is asking them to bring in new programs and strengthen their health programs. And these programs, this tailor-made influenza programs, should be focused on, it should strengthen the disease surveillance, response, prevention, control and preparedness. This World Health Organization has recommended annual flu vaccines. Because it is the most effective way to prevent the spread of this disease, especially for healthcare workers and also for the people who are at high risk of this influenza complications. And the next thing is it called for the development of more effective and more accessible vaccines. Effective and accessible vaccines and antiviral treatments. And from the prelims point of view, we should know what is this new strategy, and also we should know about this organization called World Health Organization, which is a specialized agency of United Nations that is concerned with international public health. And this was established in 1948 with its headquarters in Geneva of Switzerland. The reports that were being published by this World Health Organization is World Health Report and Worldwide World Health Survey. Now let's see today's practice MCQs. The first question is with regard to this National Company Law Appellate Tribunal, and the next question is regarding this 2x2 dialogue mechanism. Try to answer these questions and post answers in the comment box. In tomorrow's video, we will see the explanation for these questions. Thank you.